Tandem fandom. My name is Alexis and welcome to the Tandem Collective, where you can find the latest bookish reviews, news, and recommendations from Team Tandem. I am so excited today to be giving you my 5 in 5 essential romantasy authors. I am a huge fantasy, romantasy reader, as you may have gleaned from the previous videos that I have posted here. And I'm just going to go through my personal top 5 romantasy authors that you should know about, whether or not you read fantasy and romantasy. If you are a reader and you're on bookish social media, you'll probably come across these names. And if you're interested in dipping your toe into fantasy and romantasy, I think that these 5 authors are an excellent place to start. For these authors, I also decided to keep it as current authors, so people that are coming out with books currently in the last year, have some upcoming books that are coming out. So I wouldn't say that these are classic fantasy essential authors, but they are current. They are making a lot of waves in the bookish sphere. So that is why I have put them on this list and compiled this list for you. Usually I number in my videos 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but in this one, we're going to do a backwards countdown, starting with 5 and going to 1. And for number 5, I give you author Katie Roberts, who wrote the Dark Olympus series I'm holding here. It starts with Neon Gods, which is a Hades Persephone retelling. Now, this is a very common trope that you'll find. I don't know if it's exactly called a trope, but in fantasy books, Greek retellings through a fantasy lens is very, very popular. And this is a classic example. Hades Persephone is probably the most popular Greek retelling we get in fantasy. And you've got that right here. This is an adult book for sure. There's a lot of spice in it. And she follows it up with a whole bunch more books, as you can see, about different couples and thruples getting together in this fictional town of Olympus. Now, I also think that this is a great series if you are dipping your toe into fantasy for the first time, because there isn't a ton of world building and magical elements that you need to get your head around. In fact, some people would class these as straight romance and not fantasy at all. But because it's a Greek retelling, and I think there are some sort of magical elements, like with the character Hermes, I personally class these as romantasy. In our genre swap video a few weeks ago, Lex, who is the crime thriller queen of Team Tandem, she actually read Neon Gods as part of a book swap and said she found it very approachable, very easy to handle in terms of the world building, and actually quite enjoyable. With these, there is a bit of like a thriller element to them. Yeah, so she said that she would be interested in reading more, which was really rewarding, I think, for the fantasy readers on the team and romance readers on the team. So I would definitely give these a go. These are also the new beautiful covers by Source Books in the UK, which I actually won in a raffle earlier this month at Bookfest. So thank you so much, Source Books. And I have read Neon Gods, which is Hades and Persephone. I've read Electric Idol, which is Eros and Psyche, and Wicked Beauty, which is Helen of Troy, Achilles, and Patroclus from the Iliad. Katie Roberts, Dark Olympus series, definitely a huge fantasy and romantasy author. She does have other series that you can check out, but I think these are her most well-known ones now. Number 4 author I'm going to give you is V.E. Schwab, or Victoria Schwab. I believe she's American and she lives in Scotland, and she writes actually quite a variety of fantasy and gothic books. My favorite of her books is the Darker Shades of Magic series. This is the special edition. The first one is a darker shade of magic. Actually, I think it's called the Shades of Magic series. So this one, A Darker Shade of Magic, begins with, it's actually set in London, but there are like multiple dimensions of the city of London, and only a very select few people can travel through these portals to the different London dimensions and pass messages and communicate between them all. I have always loved London, even before I lived here, and I read these during lockdown in 2020 and just really gobbled them up. She also just came out with a follow-up to the Shades of Magic series, The Fragile Threads of Power, which has a lot of the same characters and takes place in the same world. So you got London on the sprayed edge. And she's also, I think, probably best known for writing The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, sort of a Faustian tale where a girl makes basically a deal with the devil. It starts out in France, I want to say in the 1700s. I know that's like a very wide window, but it starts almost as a historical fantasy and continues to be part historical fantasy and part contemporary, as the point of view switches back and forth between Addie going through the ages and living through the ages, and then her present day, which is our present day, where she meets a boy, and he's the first person not to forget her face since she was cursed by this devil. That is V.E. Schwab. She also has a whole range of other books and series, which I need to read. I have read Gallant, which is a YA, I would say almost middle grade horror, about a girl who goes to live with distant relatives in a house and finds out secrets about her family. One of the things that I like the most about V.E. Schwab is that she's got all of these different stories sort of brewing, and she's very lucky that her publisher kind of just goes with whatever she is passionate about and excited about and wanting to write next. So I feel like you get, like I said, a variety of different types of stories from her. And I actually got to see her speak the last time she was in London, and it was absolutely fascinating listening to her talk about her writing process and the way that she visualizes her books and the structures of her books and the different projects that she's got on at the moment. So I absolutely think you should check out V.E. Schwab. Her next book, which I think she was calling Toxic Lesbian Vampires, or something along those lines. They did put a title to it. I think it's, I will put it right here. The name of her next book, which is coming out in summer of 2025. I cannot wait to pick it up and read it. And you should definitely check out her backlist of incredible work. My next author, sitting at number 3 on this list, is Rebecca Yarros. And she, of course, is the author of Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, and the upcoming Onyx Storm, as well as a very lengthy backlist of contemporary romance novels, which she wrote before she wrote Fourth Wing. If you have watched videos on this channel for a while, you'll have seen that I'm quite a big fan of Fourth Wing and Rebecca Yarros, and you can also see that from my collection there on the top shelf, which doesn't even have all of them, of my Fourth Wing and Iron Flame books. I'm actually going to see Rebecca Yarros tonight for the 3rd time for a speaking engagement here in London, and I'm super excited about it. There's no way that you've been on bookish social media for the last 2 years and not heard about Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. It has completely blown up and has been very, very exciting to watch and be a part of, as people have gotten really into this series and these characters, and watching Rebecca on her Instagram tour around the world. The reason I haven't put it higher on this list, even though it's sort of I would say it's one of the fantasy/romantasy series of the current moment, is because Rebecca Yarros has only written this one series. It's not complete yet. We have 2 books out and the 3rd coming out next year, end of January. And I'm really excited to see how the series sort of plays out. I'm interested in if she wants to write more fantasy series after this one. prior to writing Fourth Wing, was not a fantasy or romantasy author at all that I'm aware of. However, I still think she is really important to know about because she is hugely popular. Her books are incredible. I'm also reading one of her contemporary romance books right now, The Things We Leave Unfinished, which is beautiful and heartbreaking and dual point of view, historical and contemporary romance. But the fact that she's on this list and she only has 2 fantasy books currently out, I think says it all. So I keep tapping my Iron Flame copy, which I'm going to bring and maybe get signed tonight. I'm not sure if she's doing a signing, but this is the Fairy Iron Flame. Fourth Wing has got absolutely fantastic world building. I think unlike Neon Gods, it does take a little bit longer, not too much longer, but a little bit longer to wrap your head around it if you are new to fantasy. But be encouraged by the fact that there are dragons, both snarky and adorable, incredible characters, and it takes place in a war college. So it's almost like reading young adult fantasy and dark academia, where the characters are in school, like middle school and high school age, and you get to see them through each year of their schooling in each book, except this is college age or uni aged in the UK. And so they're adults, they're dealing with development and problems that are more relatable for adults. And of course, there is lots of spice. So can't go wrong there. That is Rebecca Yarros, author of Fourth Wing, Iron Flame. And you should check out her romance backlist as well if you are a romance reader. Romance author number 2, I am going to give you Danielle L Jensen. She is, I believe, a Canadian author, and she is best known for writing The Bridge Kingdom. This is a duology, The Bridge Kingdom and The Traitor Queen. And this is actually, I think, in some ways more approachable than Neon Gods and the Dark Olympus series for people just starting out with fantasy, because there are no magical elements in this series. It's just a made-up land, made-up geography and map and characters and politics, and there's a lot of economics. I don't want to make it sound boring because it's not, but it's just like in terms of trade and feuding empires and kingdoms and their resources, it's actually quite accessible for people who read thrillers, political thrillers, and world history, any books with those types of themes. It follows Lara, who is betrothed to Aron, who is king of an enemy kingdom, and she has been trained to assassinate him and basically betray his kingdom for her father, who is the king of her kingdom. Hopefully that makes sense. Little does she know that there's a lot that has been kept from her by her father, and a lot that she gets to discover about Aron's kingdom after they get married, and about Aron himself. And she starts to fall for him and has to make a difficult choice of, is she going to follow through with the original mission of killing him or not? So that is The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L Jensen. She also followed it up with a second duology following another pair of characters in this world, and that is The Inadequate Heir and The Endless War. So this series, The Bridge Kingdom, I would say, is probably her most well-known series. However, her latest book that she came out with is called A Fate Inked in Blood. And as you can see, it's like a very manageable length, and it is inspired by Viking culture and mythology. It follows a woman named Freya, who has these secret powers that she's been told to hide her entire life. And when a warlord essentially finds out about them, he uses her to try and make himself more powerful and position himself as the chosen one. And the person that is charged with her personal protection is the warlord's son, who of course is gorgeous, Bjorn, and he has a flaming axe weapon. The Bridge Kingdom and A Fate Inked in Blood are both adult series, so there is spice in there. It does deal with characters that are, I would say, in their early mid-20s, sometimes a little bit older. Danielle L Jensen, she's got lots of other books, other series, and she's just a fantastic writer. This is the Fairy Loot edition of Fate Inked in Blood. So I highly recommend you check out her work. It's really nice also because she's got a lot of duologies, so it's kind of short and sweet, unlike some other fantasy authors that their series are quite long and can be intimidating. So Danielle L Jensen, definitely an essential fantasy and romantasy author. In a shock to absolutely no one who knows me, my number one essential fantasy romantasy author is Sarah J. Maas. I'm not holding up a book for this one because literally this is all Sarah J. Maas, as is this shelf down here. This is all one series, actually, the Crescent City series. Let's get into it. I'm not going to go on for too long. Sarah J. Maas, she is the queen of romantasy. A lot of people say that her books and her series are what inspired many authors to write similar works with the same sorts of fantasy romance themes, and so people have deemed her the queen of romantasy. Her first series is the Throne of Glass series. I do have full-size copies of this series, but this one's much easier to hold up. These are the mini editions of this series. So there are 7 books in this series, and then there's an 8th one that's like a collection of novellas that take place before the series starts. They are classed as YA, the Throne of Glass series. However, it does definitely in later books air into a little bit spicier and more new adult and adult themes, I would say. Sarah started writing this book, Throne of Glass, I believe when she was 16. So you also get to see her writing change and develop and, to be honest, improve throughout this series. I always tell people, for me, the first 2 are my least favorite, Throne of Glass and Crowd of Midnight. I mean, they're essential because it's how it starts and essential to the story and the world building. But I'm always just like, read the first 2 to get to the rest of them. And I would also recommend reading this series first if you've not read a Sarah J. Maas series. Yes, it is a longer series than her others, but don't be intimidated. You will speed through them, trust me. It's just a feat of incredible writing and world building and characters in this series. It's on a massive scale. And she does, though, I think, like, drip feed you into the world building. In each book, the world gets a little bit more expansive and you learn a little bit more. New elements are added that are really exciting. So while there are technically 8 books in this series, it's not as intimidating as it sounds, I promise. Have I sold you yet? Okay, so that is her first series, Throne of Glass. Her most well-known series, I think, is probably the ACOTAR series, A Court of Thorns and Roses. So if you've seen ACOTAR, that acronym anywhere, that's what it refers to, A Court of Thorns and Roses. The original series had 3 books. It was a trilogy, so these 3. And then it was followed up by a novella and then a 5th book that follows a different couple in the series. This one is about fae and warriors. Similar to Throne of Glass, it's like a medieval-inspired fantasy world, like Tolkien. So there's not like technology and that sort of thing. There's lots of magical elements, and just the relationships in both of these series between the characters, I think, is what keep people coming back. the romances, the friendships. I could soliloquize probably forever about them, but I won't, because Sarah J. Maas has one more series, and that is the Crescent City series. So that is a trilogy that was just completed in January. We've got House of Earth and Blood, House of Sky and Breath, and House of Flame and Shadow. And then these are just like other editions that I have of those same books. This one is more on the paranormal fantasy spectrum. It takes place in a city. They have technology and magic. They have things like cell phones, which in a lot of fantasy series, that's like not part of it at all. Like I said, it's more like medieval, Tolkien inspired. There's a multitude of magical creatures. You've got fae, werewolves, vampires, witches, just like a full spectrum of magical creatures, and a very, very feisty, incredible heroine, just like the heroines in Sarah's other two series. Reading House of Flame and Shadow just felt like, to me, reading a masterpiece. It was the culmination of so much work that she has done and tying so many things together. I don't want to give any spoilers, but it made so many connections and tied many things together. And it was just like the book, I think, that fantasy readers and fans of hers were just hoping for, and that she gave us. So that is her final series. She also has a book, Catwoman Soul Stealer, totally separate and different publisher from the rest of her books. It was written as a DC Comics collab. There were a few other authors who wrote similar books about Superman, Wonder Woman, etc., and hers was Catwoman Soul Stealer. I've never been into reading superhero books, but I read this one because I love her writing and didn't disappoint. It had all of the classic elements I love about her books, which is great world building, character relationships, and romance. And that's why Sarah J. Maas is my #1 essential fantasy romantasy author. So what do you think? Who would be on your list of the current essential fantasy and romantasy authors? Put them in the comments below. I would love to know. Let's get an exhaustive list together. Maybe we could even put it on the Tandem blog. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And for more from the Tandem Collective, you can sign up for our newsletter to get creator opportunities straight to your inbox. The link for that is in the video description. And you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.